Joining me now with more on the Gaza conflict and the announcement of a new ceasefire is James Gelvin. He's a professor of Middle East history at the University of California, Los Angeles. Professor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we're hearing yet of another ceasefire deal. Will this one be any different? Will it stop the bloodshed?
Well, I think this one has a better chance of working than the previous ones. The previous ceasefire, for example, the first one that was put on the table was the Egyptian ceasefire attempt, which replicated the 2012 ceasefire that Israel violated pretty quickly. It was supposed to ease the blockade on Gaza, and it didn't. This one, however, is a bit different. At this point, the Israelis are redeploying their forces. They have claimed that they have achieved their war aim, which was to wipe out the tunnels. Two of Hamas's first demands, actually, for ceasefire was the ceasefire itself, and then, of course, Israeli withdrawal, which they're getting. Now, as far as the other things are concerned, it's possible that, well, what the Israelis said today is that if it holds up for 72 hours, they're out of Gaza, and then maybe other things could be put on the table.
So after nearly 4 weeks of conflict, the rocket attacks into Israel have not stopped. The Israeli military campaign, in your opinion, is it working?
It depends on how you define your goals. The goals have always been to degrade the forces of Hamas and to get rid of the tunnels. Then we sort of lost track of this degrading of Hamas, and Netanyahu's been emphasizing the tunnels. Now, if you put it that way, the Israelis have actually achieved what their aims actually are. Israel does not want to destroy Hamas. Israel is afraid of what would occur if there is no governance whatsoever in the Gaza Strip. They're also afraid of more radical elements. For example, the Islamic State has recruited various groups from Gaza. So this is something that Israel doesn't want to see, and Hamas doesn't want to see that sort of thing happen either. So there's a confluence there.
So, of course, each side, as you know, has blamed the other for provoking this conflict, and it's the Palestinian people who are ultimately paying the price. Over 1,500 have been killed. Why is a lasting ceasefire so hard to achieve?
Well, everybody's got to win. And in order for that to take place, what you have to do is to achieve at least part of the goals that you went in for. Now the Israelis are saying that they won, in the sense that they achieved their goals. As soon as they withdraw, then Hamas can say, well, at least we partially achieved our goals as well. We won. And then, of course, you have a third partner in this whole thing, the Egyptians, who have said, okay, look, what we're going to do is bilateral talks with the Palestinians on Rafah. Which puts Egypt once again in the center of Arab diplomacy. So in a sense, everybody can claim a victory out of this.
And of course, if you talk to Palestinians, they say there's a much bigger issue that needs to be resolved. It's not just stopping the violence, it's making life easier for Palestinians in Gaza, ending the Israeli blockade, opening the borders. They say Israel essentially still controls that entire area. Yes. So do you think we will get to a point where these main issues that Palestinians are concerned about will actually be tackled and resolved?
It's an interesting point, and there's been a very interesting idea that's been floated in the last week or so, the idea of demilitarization of Gaza. And the idea is this, that Hamas renounces violence, gives up its weapons, which is an outside shot, joins with the Palestinian Authority on the West Bank in a unity government, and then there's a massive reconstruction effort to take place in Gaza, economic aid, all sorts of other things that could be done in terms of building of a port, building of an airport, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is fairly far-fetched. I mean, this may or may not even ever hit the table. But the only other choice the Israelis have is every 2 years going into Gaza and knocking out the missiles again. So this is something that it stretches credibility a bit, but it's a possibility.
And of course, Egypt, which has always played a big role in these negotiations, things have been complicated because there's a change of leadership in Egypt. Can you explain how that has hindered, perhaps, the cause of the Palestinians?
Well, the Egyptian leadership, General Sisi, who overthrew a Muslim Brotherhood government, has no love for Hamas. Hamas, of course, is the Palestinian equivalent of the Muslim Brotherhood. And so therefore has been very, very successful at, for example, blocking the tunnels that go from Egypt to the Gaza Strip, keeping the border closed, the border crossing at Rafah closed very, very frequently. It just opens very, very rarely now. So this is something that the Egyptians have been doing in the last short period of time. Now, the Egyptians also have a problem on their hands, which is the fact that, number one, they can't be seen as too pro-Israel. Popular demand is in Egypt on the street is, of course, that the Palestinian cause is a just cause. So they have that going for them. And the other thing is that they can't give up the baton for international diplomacy to somebody else, maybe Turkey or Qatar or a place like that. So they're sort of caught between their hatred for the Hamas on the one hand and their need to somehow be involved in the international negotiation to resolve the issue.
All right, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much, Professor James Gelvin, joining us from Los Angeles.